In the days when the judges ruled Israel, there was a severe famine in the land. Food became scarce, and many families struggled to survive. A man named Elimelech lived in Bethlehem with his wife Naomi and their 2 sons. Because of the famine, the family decided to leave their homeland. They traveled to the land of Moab, hoping to find food and safety. For a while, life seemed stable again. Naomi's sons grew older and eventually married Moabite women. One son married a woman named Orpah. The other married a woman named Ruth. But tragedy soon struck the family. Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died. Naomi was left alone with her 2 sons and their wives. Then, even more sorrow followed. Naomi's 2 sons also died. Suddenly, Naomi found herself widowed and without children in a foreign land. Her heart was filled with grief and loneliness. After some time, Naomi heard news from Bethlehem. The Lord had blessed the land again, and food had returned. Naomi decided it was time to go home. She began the journey back to Bethlehem with her 2 daughters, but along the road, Naomi stopped and spoke to them with kindness. She told them to return to their own families in Moab. She knew their future would be uncertain if they followed her. Naomi prayed that God would bless them and give them new husbands. Both women wept when they heard her words. Orpah sadly kissed Naomi goodbye and returned home. But Ruth refused to leave. Ruth held tightly to Naomi and spoke words that would be remembered forever. "Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God." Ruth chose loyalty over comfort. She left her homeland and everything familiar to stay with Naomi. Together, the 2 women continued their journey to Bethlehem. When they arrived, the town buzzed with curiosity. Many people remembered Naomi from years before, but Naomi felt that her life had become bitter. She told the people not to call her Naomi, which means pleasant. Instead, she said to call her Mara, meaning bitter. Yet even in her sorrow, hope was beginning to grow. Ruth decided to help provide food for them. According to Israelite law, poor people could gather leftover grain from harvested fields. This practice was called gleaning. Ruth went out to the fields to gather grain behind the harvesters. By what seemed like coincidence, she entered the field of a man named Boaz. Boaz was a wealthy landowner and a relative of Naomi's late husband. When Boaz arrived at the field, he noticed Ruth immediately. He asked the workers who she was. They explained that she was the Moabite woman who had returned with Naomi. They told Boaz how Ruth had worked tirelessly all day. Boaz was impressed by her loyalty. He approached Ruth and spoke kindly to her. He told her she could continue gathering grain safely in his fields. He also instructed his workers not to harm her. Boaz even told them to purposely leave extra grain behind for her. Ruth was deeply humbled by his kindness. She bowed and thanked him. Boaz explained that he had heard about her devotion to Naomi. Her loyalty had not gone unnoticed. Ruth returned home that evening with a large amount of grain. Naomi was surprised and asked where she had worked. When Ruth told her it was Boaz's field, Naomi became hopeful. She explained that Boaz was a close family relative. According to their custom, a relative could act as a redeemer for the family. This meant he could marry Ruth and continue the family line. Naomi helped Ruth prepare a plan. One evening, Ruth quietly approached Boaz at the threshing floor. She asked him to spread his cloak over her as a sign of protection and redemption. Boaz was honored by her request. He promised to help. However, there was another relative who had a closer claim. Boaz went to the town elders to settle the matter. In front of witnesses, Boaz explained the situation. The closer relative declined the responsibility. This cleared the way for Boaz to act as the family redeemer. Boaz then publicly announced that he would marry Ruth. The people of the town celebrated the union. Ruth, once a foreign widow, was now welcomed into Israel. Her loyalty had led her to a new future. Boaz and Ruth were married, and their home was filled with blessing. Soon, Ruth gave birth to a son. Naomi held the child in her arms with joy. The women of Bethlehem celebrated with her. They said that Naomi's life had been restored. The child was named Obed. Obed would grow up to become the father of Jesse, and Jesse would become the father of King David. Through Ruth's faithfulness, God's plan continued. Her story became part of the greatest story of redemption. From this family line would one day come Jesus Christ. What began with famine and loss ended with hope and restoration. The story of Ruth teaches a beautiful lesson. Loyalty, kindness, and faithfulness can change the course of a life. God sees every act of devotion and love, and sometimes the smallest acts of faith become part of a much greater plan. In the end, Ruth's story reminds us that redemption often begins with simple faithfulness, and God can turn even the most painful beginnings into a future filled with hope.